Hello, everyone. Welcome to your world or mine. Show me yours, and I'll show you mine. And today we have beautiful Anneloes here from all the way from Mauritius, one of the most beautiful places on Earth. And as you know, I'm alien, and this is one of my first visits to Earth. And I'm really curious to know what's happening here. And my people also, they're also very interested to see how humans relate to each other, how they relate to this beautiful body that you live on, and all such things. So let's see what wants to emerge here today. So welcome, Anneloes.
Thank you very much for having me.
And I just want to show to everybody, you will also sometimes notice where I currently am and where Anneloes is, our data connections, our internet connections might make these interesting sounds throughout the process, but don't be disturbed by that, because it just shows you that an alien can actually speak to a human being, the most beautiful human being here on Earth, and sometimes there might be interference. So don't go away when that happens. It's all part of the process. So Anneloes, welcome again. And at this moment, my body is responding in a very interesting way to you as a human being. And I feel it in my belly. It's like there's a movement in my belly. And from my experience, everyone, that always shows me that something interesting wants to happen here today. So I would like you to sit back and relax and just enjoy when you engage with us together in this way afterwards. And Anneloes, for me, that creates an interesting line between my belly and my brain. It's like I've got this curiosity going on to ask, you are from a Dutch descent, but you live in Mauritius. So can you tell us a little bit more about that? How did you end up in Mauritius?
Well, of the many countries where I've lived. So it's the last place where I'm living now. But yes, I've actually lived in South Africa as well for a year. But I came here for family reasons. Yes, and children are here, so I'm waiting for them to grow up, and then later I will go back to the Netherlands again. It's a beautiful place for them to grow up. You know, the nature is amazing here. And it's a very interesting little place because, you know, there were no indigenous people in Mauritius. So everybody came here. Everybody has a story. Also, of course, many people were brought here against their will. And I have found it very interesting growing up in the Netherlands and then having lived in South Africa and Australia and now Mauritius. You really see the impacts of colonialism from the other side. And you don't get that feedback when you live in Europe very often. You know, I've really experienced what it has caused. So also living in Mauritius, it also gives you an understanding of the impacts of that. As many, and then later from India as indentured laborers. And yeah, so Mauritius is a place of many, many different cultures. We've all had to find ways to be able to live together and to find, despite having different roots, and to create new roots in a shared humanity on a small island. Yeah. It's also limited in its resources, so sustainability is also an issue here. Yes.
You shared something very important for me, and it raises a lot of questions immediately as well. The diversity part, that people have to learn to live together and be together in the same place from different backgrounds and cultures. And you talked about the shared humanity.
Yes.
And immediately it raises the question of how is that possible, this shared humanity, in your experience and this beautiful wisdom knowledge that you share? How do you see that happening or playing out, a shared humanity?
Yeah, so if we're bringing it back to the web of life and where we stand within the circle of life, we are one among many species. And our planet is our common home. With the trees and with all the animals and the insects and the rocks, yes, and our entire beautiful biosphere. So we are one family member as a species within a larger family of life. So if you're holding the planetary perspective of our species, we can say that we have our common humanity. Yeah. But then, of course, when we are looking deep within our humanity, we see a diversity. And within a diversity, we may say that we have different cultures, different genes, yes, but they're still all part of the same human genes. And there have been different experiments, of course, as well, evolutionary. So the human species now is not the first or the last. Yeah, there's been many so-called evolutionary experiments before that. Okay. And yet within that, all the other species that preceded us are part of our ancestors, yeah? Including the dolphins and the whales and the lizards and the snake. Yeah? They're all our ancestors. And they've all contributed to make it possible that we as this human species could be here now and have this experience of the universe as the universe. And we will be the ancestors again of what comes after us. And if we recognize that, like, for example, with the trees and the flowers, there's also this incredible diversity. It's not a single flower that's the same. So we as human beings also have an incredible diversity. Now, if we can see that that's also a natural evolutionary play of life, yeah? And part of kind of the cosmic intelligence, so that life can continue to evolve, and there's more opportunities and experiences for us to awaken deeper to both what is the same and where we are unique. Then we start to kind of land into what that means to have our common humanity and our same humanity. That gives rise and allows for a diversity of expressions within that.
As I'm seeing, we sensory beings on our planet. As I'm sensing into your presence and what you just so beautifully shared now about, firstly, the sense of sameness, but also this diversity, which comes up for me is, does human beings not necessarily make it complicated? Is it a mind thing or is it really a beingness thing? So when we refer to a beingness thing, it's I'm a being in a physical body. My body's my home, and Earth is my home. If it's my planet, that's my home. And like you said, that's that common thread, that web of life that you so beautifully shared. And yes, there's all this beautiful diversity on it. I don't want to be the same as another flower. It's wonderful to be me as the being. Am I correct in assuming or even thinking it that it is the mindset, the mind that creates this dissonance that we cannot live together, or it's impossible to have this diversity and then have harmony? Is it a mind thing, or in your experience, is it a being thing? What would you call it?
I see that the diversity thinking, or divided thinking, not diversity thinking, but the thinking in terms of polarization and division is a mental concept. It's not in our beingness. Because when we relax the mind and we go beyond that duality perception and we just breathe the oxygen in the air, that's breathing you, that's breathing me. Yeah. We're drinking also the same water. It's all the same water on our planet. Yeah. Really feel the elements that sustain us and that form our body. There is no concept there of us being separate or divided, or that our differentness is a source of conflict. Not at all. Yeah. So it's the mind, and you know, for many people, their ways of being, and also if you're looking at the brainwave patterns, in fact, is not coherent. It's not deeply integrated. So if we are only thinking with a part of ourselves and not a whole of ourselves, we create partial thinking. So we create division in our minds. But even if we believe it's true in our mind, doesn't mean it's true in reality. And the sun is not going to stop giving energy because I may not like the sun. Yeah. The trees will not stop generating oxygen because I may say, oh, the trees are not influenced by that.
It's very interesting when you share that. what comes to my whole being in that sense. My body's responding to it. And again, my feet is responding to it as well. Today I had it earlier as well. It's very fascinating because it gives a sense of connectedness to the earth, to this planet. But what came up was, firstly, isn't it perhaps, and this is just a question, and it doesn't necessarily need to be answered, isn't it perhaps the way human beings, when they enter this beautiful world, this life, this existence on a consciousness level, that the way they are introduced to everything around themselves and themselves, for that matter, isn't it about the way it's been introduced to them as separate of them? So life is this thing out there, and it might be against me. I'm a victim of a situation, a scenario, a circumstance, something that's happening in the world. So it's something, and the same relates to the earth. So I'm completely separate from it. I'm not given the opportunity to experience as I'm actually one with it. I'm part of it. I'm not separate of it. So life goes through me. It doesn't happen to me, which is two very different concepts by itself. Don't you think that's perhaps just one of the reasons why this division that we're now exploring here, the cause of that perhaps, that even from a young age, the way a little one comes into the world, it's shown that it's separate from everything else around it.
Yeah. Yes, no, I agree with you. We've created cultures of division and cultural divisions. So we've done both, yeah? So the feedback that especially children are getting very often is indeed that life is to be feared and not to be trusted, and that other people are not to be trusted, and differentness is scary, you know. So indeed, the feedback that a lot of the young people are getting themselves out life creates more division and fear. And that's very sad because it doesn't need to be there. And there are also examples of other cultures, and for example, indigenous cultures where children are brought up in a very different way. I learned a lot from the Australian Aborigines during my time in Australia. They didn't have the word I and me. So their concept of personhood and being and what it means to be me came from a collective sense of being, and also a collective sense of responsibility of the caretaking for the community, for the land. Let's say the land brings us up, the land grows us up. So that whole sense of belonging also to the spirit of the land and the large ecology from where our evolution came into being, and then the larger cosmic realities around that can give such a deep sense of belonging to that wholeness that brings us forth. But yet in many of the educational systems and for many children, the way they're raised, what they learn also later in the field of work is very different message. That is very, what we call Descartesian and message, yeah, of the split of mind and body and superiority of rational thought above everything else. Very patriarchal system often as well. Yeah. And another form of colonialism in some ways. You know, colonialism in fact is a practice of domination, of making one thing dominant over something else. Yes. So also if we make the intellect dominant over everything else, it's another form of colonialism of the self. Yeah.
You know, how we refer to that is oppression.
Yeah.
It is a form of oppression.
Oppression results from domination. Yeah. Yeah.
And nobody's body, if you just go to our bodies, enjoys being oppressed, enjoys being contracted. If you just look at what happens to my body, if I'm sitting like this, it's not an enjoyable experience. Whereas when human beings are allowed to express who they are freely, in whatever way, it takes me still back to something that might be neglected. I would not say it's missing, but it's neglected, which is connection. the relationship part to everything around myself, and the way I will then interact with whatever that is. Firstly, there must be a connection to it, a deep connection. And when you speak about this, you speak about the land and the beings and all the creatures, everything. If that connection, it's not something that you can create through the mind, through a thought. It's not
Exactly.
something, it happens on another level. Yeah. And if that connection is not there, it's like two human beings, like in a romantic relationship. First, there's this excitement and all the hormones is going and the curiosity. And there's also this, it's like a pull thing. It pulls you towards the other. It's a magnetic thing that's happening between two people. And the connection is the same thing with everything else. And then you want to explore that. What is it to be like? You want to be with this person. There's this desire inside of yourself. I want to have more experiences with this human being. It's wonderful to be with them. So you're going to explore that. So you open up in some way. And that connection then grows and it gets stimulated all the time. It expands and contracts. It expands and contracts. But it grows all the time. And it's not a thing of taking and giving all the time. It's in the beginning, it's like this flow. It's happening between the masculine and the feminine, if you want to speak about it in that way. But there's a connection there, a deeper connection. And again, it feels as if the younger ones, the ones who came more recently, and everyone else for that matter, when they entered the world in this way, that was not something that they got exposed to. It was not stimulated. It's like you say, the first thing you hear is no 400 times a day for a 3-year-old. So it's negative, fear-based instructions. It's instructions. Whereas it's not an invitation to come and experience the beauty of everything that's around us and to then begin to value it, to revere it for what it is. Because then it's impossible. If I revere you, how can I then want to harm you? It's impossible. Because as a being, it's wonderful to be with you and just to be present with you. We don't even have to say a word. Just being present with you. But those things are not, like you say, part of education. It's not part of parenting. And I have to say as well for everybody, we know that parents do the best they can with what they know at the time. But from our perspective, we live in a time now where the internet has blown open everything. We cannot now anymore say, I didn't know. We can go and explore better ways if we don't know. We can inform ourselves. And inform is an interesting word for us on our planet. If you look at the word inform, the in is first. So there's the intuitive part first, so informed by everything around me. And that connection, relation to everything around me. And then comes the form part to put it into a structure or a system or a form, comes afterwards. And maybe humans have gone the other way around until now, where they put the form part first and the in part was a bit disconnected and disorientated and maybe not even been aware of. And when you so beautifully speaks about this connection with the earth, I just want to share something with you on what happened recently with me on your planet twice now, in the last 3 months. In one place that I've been called to the spirit, by the spirit of the land, to this place on earth, literally. And then I listened to the call, I went. And the first morning I woke up there, after 2 long flights, I dissolved into the landscape. I was not me anymore. It was the most extraordinary experience. And then recently I had another one like that in an area which we were driving through. I was not even standing with my feet on the soil. I was in a vehicle. We were driving through the mountains. And again, I was just looking out to the mountains and again, dissolving. And for me, that's the 2 experiences from a physicality point of view, of where I really deeply connected to the spirit of the earth, because the I part that you're speaking about, especially from the indigenous people, is the I part dissolved. And it was just in this most amazing, beautiful space of beingness. It's not even nothingness. There was no form there. There was not mental thoughts about it. What is your experiences in terms of that? Because a little birdie told me about something most beautiful that you're sharing with the world, which is called Earthwise. What is that all about? Because it seems to link with me with what you shared and my experience. So I'm curious, what is Earthwise about?
Yes, well, Earthwise is a beautiful enterprise, wisdom enterprise organization that I've created, where we deeply bring forth the wisdom of our planet and our planetary perspective for what is happening now. Because many of the human-made systems are not synchronized, are not aligned with nature's and our planetary intelligence and wisdom. So Earthwise means the wisdom of our Earth. And when we learn to live by that, and we apply that also in the way that we create our systems, yeah, and we bring that forth also in education and governance and in all of our different activities, also in the world of business, then we inform the world of form from a place of wisdom and not information. Mm. And wisdom is always that which generates the deepest coherence and therefore brings forth the deepest thriveability for all. So yes, so that was based on a vision from lived in very deep harmony with the spirit of the land for a long time. And when I was in Australia, I took 7 years of retreat to be meditation and with nature for most of the day and night. And so then I said after those 7 years, okay, now I feel it is something of a constant experience within myself that never goes away, that unity. So how can I now bring that forth? How can I share that through organizations, through the art activities, through education? And that's Earthwise is based on that. It was born from that intention. Yeah, because the spirit of the land, what is beautiful within the spirit of the land is an entire world. It's an entire cosmology also within itself. And as the nature of the universe is very much like a fractal. When you really connect with the wholeness, also within the local space-time realities, a whole universe opens up there. And indigenous people always knew where the spirit of the land, and especially in the sacred sites, there were like vortexes, portals into the dream time. So as you really connect with the spirit of the land, you connect with the dreaming behind that formation process. And you enter a parallel world. And that dreamtime reality is always here, but people have forgotten how to connect with that.
Am I correct in saying that it is fear that keeps people away from it? Or that makes people reject it when they hear about it? What do you think it is that when somebody hears something like yourself, because you're presencing it as well, you're not just speaking about it, you're presencing it. You're presencing this calm connection to the earth in your body, and we're doing this virtually, and I can still feel it. So what is it in human beings that makes them afraid of it? In your experience, what do you think is making them afraid of it? And the second question relating to it is it so complex that they think it is?
That's a lovely question. No, it's not complex at all. That's part of the problem, indeed, that the mind makes it so complex, It's as simple as breathing in, breathing out. Your body already knows. Your body is already part of that reality, and it's already living in it. It's if we really believe that everything that the mind generates is real, then we are in big trouble. There's a lot of things that the mind generates that have nothing to do with reality. It may feel real because it takes place in our mind, but we can make all kinds of movies. So I think part of it is fear, but part of it is also that people are not introduced to it. So it's like when I'm thinking of my children, for example. So when they were little, I introduced them to that by taking their hands and then giving them a rock and say, "Can you feel the warmth of this rock? Can you feel how it's been alive? Imagine you've been this rock. Wow, how old you are, what you've seen, what has changed in the landscape as this rock, yeah?" And they will hold the rock and they will love the rock and they connect with the rock and they feel the spirit of the rock and I'd be like, can you feel it's like almost a heartbeat in the rock? Can you feel it pulsates? And they're so then after that, they never saw the rock as something that's just as if it's dead, and I'm like, wow, even in the stone, there is life. There's a universe there. Yeah. So my sense is as well, it's children are actually very open to this, and many of them experience that. But then when they start to talk about it, the parents or the teachers say, well, that's a nice fantasy. And they go, really? Because, their vision and experience is very true. And I was one of those stubborn children that went like, well, I'm not, I don't want to be like that. So I'm going to keep this alive. Yeah. Because I heard the same message where I grew up. It's like, you have a wonderful imagination, it would tell me. And I was like, well, yes, what's wrong with that, and isn't that everything that we've brought it forth into being is based on because we imagined that first? I mean, even look at the airplanes, this ability to communicate here, somebody imagined that. But everything with what we imagine is of the universe itself. So there's nothing outside. Yes, it's nothing outside that. And so part of when you're not introduced to that, or you don't know about it, or you're being told all the time that it's a fantasy, it's not real, then people may get fear because suddenly it becomes the unknown. But when we're very little, this is not unknown to us. It's our first nature. Yeah,
it's fascinating. Yeah, that's thank you for sharing that, because it immediately brings up something for me about imagination and the way the imagination is viewed and perceived as also, again, something outside of yourself, not real. It's something, like you say, fantasy, where it is indeed, if you start really exploring it, it's here, it's part of your being, part of the whole universe, because you're the center of the universe wherever you are. But it is also the collective it is part of the collective wisdom and intelligence, whatever you want to call it. It's part of that too. So it's actually fun. And as a child, it's much easier than for a more adult person, because of all the conditioning and brainwashing in terms of that, it can be quite interesting to experience it really vividly as, I can go and fetch it. There's something there, and I can bring it into my experience, and I can play with it and see and make it play out and see how it works for me, and how does it influence my experience? How does it feel? Does it feel good for me to do this in my body? How's my body feeling about this? But it could be quite exciting game. And if I get very sad if I look at the workplace, the business world, the traditional business world, let me rephrase that, where there was not much opportunity to explore the other possibilities and solutions that's hanging out there because of the controlled environment. That this is all the procedures and in terms of the business world and processes that's defined. You cannot go outside of it. So even if you may perceive a better way of doing something, which might save a lot of resources and time, it's not allowed because it's not part of this little box. But it's that case that even at that level, when people spend in organization lots and lots of resources, and I don't even want to just call it money because it's a lot more than money as a way of exchange of resources to find solutions, but it's just here. It's just here because it's still trying to find something in the current space of that box, not outside of it. So it ripples through all parts of life. this is the beautiful thing before we talk about the imagination and the collective wisdom. Now, Anneloes, I'm curious about when you share your experiences and your wisdom with others on the planet, how do you transcend that initial fear, that resistance, for them to be able to hear? And when I say hear, really listen and really understand what you are bringing to them. And maybe they cannot perceive it, yes, and can't see through that. But how do you get them to bridge that fear, that initial fear?
Yeah, I do that through relationship. You know, this is the beautiful spirit of Ubuntu, you know, in Africa. So what I do is I meet them in their humanity where they are at. So I open myself to what it means for them to be who they are there. So I connect with them. Yeah. So that's a bridge of empathy first that I form. So meet them in their humanity where they're at. And then I'm first interested and curious about them. My intention is not to tell them to change or tell them that they have, it's not about any of that. I'm actually really curious what it means for that person to be who they are, and what are they living, and what do they need. And then I connect with the deepest wisdom in them, because that's the same wisdom that lives in me and in our entire universe. And that wisdom then starts to guide and starts to activate within us both and in the field in between us. And that informs me then in terms of where I hold my intention. How can I best support that person to really grow into the wholeness of who they are and to discover the beauty and the magic of who they are and to really open to the wonders of life.
I'm seeing things that I'm feeling it in my body. It's most beautiful and it's joyful. And on our planet, we do something very similar. There's so much synergy and coherence. But there's one word that I want to explore for the benefit of those who's going to engage with us in this beautiful way with technology. Use the word intention. What is an intention?
What the intention is that I hold?
No. What is intention? When you use the concept intention, what is intention?
Intention, yes.
Because
Intention is a practice. Is a practice where I bring my consciousness in a particular state of awareness that allows me to connect with the deepest essence of who I am and life. And so it's a way of making my awareness coherent with the innate coherence of the wisdom of our universe, which allows me then to be able, within all that information that is there, to zoom in to what is essential. That directs then my focus, so that I then know how to kind of give guidance to that ongoing creative process, to bring direction into that. So that's not quite complex for some people, but it really is, to me, it's a practice, because we use that word intention a lot. What's your intention? Hold a clear intention, but we don't teach the practice. And I think just telling people, oh, just hold a clear intention and it will happen, is actually not very useful as an instruction at all. Because then people, well, I did that, was intention, but nothing happened. Yeah, and maybe nothing happened because the moment this new creative wave came forth, there was so many filters there and there was so much noise that everything got lost in that noise. So you only come to the point where you actually can hold that intention when you have a little bit the ability to guide your attention. Because if your attention is scattered and it's all over the place, then that's where your energy is. So you first need to bring back your attention to the center of your being, You can do that also by breathing, feeling your body, feeling your direct connection with the wisdom and the source of life, being present within the spirit of the land. Just appreciating your oneness with nature. Yeah? So you bring your attention back to your inner being. And then from there, you become present to the wholeness of you. And then through that, the wholeness of life. And then you have some space and time for a little bit of nothingness. So you don't fill it in immediately. You can actually ask yourself now, what's really right now my deepest intention for what I like to experience and what I'd like to support. And then you just be present with what emerges from that intention. As your intention is being formed and it's brought forth from your wisdom nature. And that brings into attention for you where your focus is best directed and placed. And that you then energize with your love.
Now, the ones who's engaging in this know by now that on my planet we're very sensitive. And it's very interesting, as she was sharing this beautiful practice, what's happening in my body and in my awareness as such. And from a logical point of view, from a reasoning point of view, there's a big difference between having a wish to do something, because again, it's where it's coming from, which is the important part. It's coming from the mind, not necessarily from the heart. And when we use the word heart in this context, is that whole beingness that you've been sharing about so beautifully now. It's the totality of who you are, your wholeness, present, connected to the earth and everything else around it. But the awareness is inside. So the awareness is not sitting up here somewhere. It's equally everywhere. Yes. But what happened with my awareness is, in that moment when you shared about intention in that way, of directing your attention, is that the driving force is coming from within, outside. So it's not something imposed from the outside in. It comes from here out. It doesn't originate here. So it's a total human experience where the higher mind, everything is involved, the body, all the intelligences, the heart intelligence, this beingness intelligence, for lack of another word, is driving this process. And all you need to do is to focus your attention on that. And then the interesting thing that happens when we do that is that this intention becomes a magnet. And we are pulled towards it. So we don't have to chase anything after anything, because we will just waste energy then. We'll exert too much. And like you say, we'll be scattered all over the place. Because where we're looking for it, because it might be here now, it might be there. But so it's magnifying the intention. And what does that mean in simple words? It brings it closer to us much quicker in terms of time. Because this magnification of the intention is also a purification process of our thoughts.
Yes.
Because suddenly we don't want to allow, it's a very interesting thing that happens inside of us. We don't want to allow all these distracting thoughts. So we become really in charge of this process. But it happens spontaneously. It's not, oh, I now need to do this, or now I need to do that. You just follow, it's an impulse that you just start following. But it's not, and some people I know might perceive it as or understand or interpret it as a instinctive impulse. It's different from the instinctive impulse because it's that collective wisdom that you were speaking about,
Yeah.
together with this personal intelligence. If I don't know how else to explain it.
Yes.
It's nothing about an instinctive impulse. There's so much wisdom behind it.
That's it. There's consciousness there. Yeah.
And then your awareness starts dropping down in your physical body as well.
Yes.
It's no longer just perceived up here somewhere.
Yeah.
It's throughout the body. And everybody's very different. We all have activated very different parts of ourselves or in the process of it. And it gets stimulated. That's where the diversity parts come so beautifully.
Yeah.
Because we're also stimulated by so different things. And imagine life if every human being was the same in that sense of how we perceive life.
Yeah.
But again, it brings back to that simplicity of that presence inside of yourself.
That's it. Exactly. Beautifully shared. Thank you. Yes.
And I want to make the others aware of what's happening in my body now, again, for real, because it's really powerful. Because I can now just sit here with you, and non-verbal communication, which we call the language of energy, will start. It's already started happening. It's happening all the time, whether we're aware of it or not. But I can now also feel my body between me and you, as I'm engaging with you. This is starting to happen in my awareness.
Yes.
So my awareness is traveling from my center towards you, and then coming back. So the collective wisdom that you embody at this moment in time is now available to me on a subconscious level as well.
Yes.
And whenever I need it, it might be now 5 minutes later, when we say goodbye to each other today, it might be 10 days later, or it might be a year later, that my consciousness part wants to now, I don't want to use the word use because that is not a word we like to use on our planet, but apply in whatever situation needed.
Yes.
But I can dip into it any moment consciously with my awareness.
Exactly.
To pick it up.
That's it. You can connect it.
Yeah, tomorrow I might be painting something and it will be part of the painting. Yeah. Or tomorrow I might meet another friend and have a conversation and engage with them, and somehow it will come through.
Yes.
So everybody, so that's the beauty, everybody benefits.
Exactly. That's why it's so generative. It's beautiful, you know, it brings forth new expressions of life. It's wonderful. Yes.
And you just shared that beautiful word into this space now, generative.
Yeah.
And from my visits here on your beautiful planet until now, it's interesting that the connotations we, as beings, put to certain concepts. Because of our background, the conditioning, our environment, our culture, everything, and the spirit, our connection with this beautiful spirit of the land, the earth, and other spirits as well, is that generative is not something that takes energy. Generative is a natural process. When you're in your mother's tummy, it's a generative process. It didn't take any energy from her. She just needed to be healthy, sleep well, rest well, be calm, those type of things. So yeah, she had to take care of herself in that sense on all levels, emotional, physical, and spiritual. But inside, you were generating yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not taking energy. The moment something takes energy from you, when you feel drained, it's not generative.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's very simple also just to ask ourselves now and then, when we're in a situation that's draining, why am I in this situation? Is it serving my generativity? Because if it's draining me, it's not.
Yeah. Yes. And how am I draining it as well?
And how am
Am
I
I
draining
blocking
others?
it?
And others,
Yeah.
how am I draining others as well? Now, the reason why I'm
Yeah.
bringing this up
And
now,
myself.
yeah, the reason why I'm bringing this up now is for the ones who came more recently, were born into, like your beautiful children, born into a world of technology and communications in the way we're perceiving it now. How is it for them? What can they do when they're on social media, for example,
Mm.
and they get involved in discussions and threats of some sort?
Mm.
How can they evaluate for themselves? Is this generative
Yeah.
or is this destructive?
Yes. Again, so they also, for especially for young people, the body intelligence is incredibly important, that they learn that language of the body. So when their body can tell them, look, no, this doesn't feel right, or I'm going too far, or the request that's being made to me, something feels off, that they learn to trust that. It's so important here because, our bodies are very old. Yeah, even in your young body, the knowledge of body, the wisdom of body is very, very, very old. It's a long time evolution. We're creating now technologies that are in a very different time scale, and some of them coming from the future too. So, and with these technologies, often everything starts to flow into each other. So learning about boundaries is even more important now for young people than it ever was. And the boundaries, they don't know their boundaries if they don't also have a sense of self. What does it mean to be me right now? How do I feel about this? Is this, as you said, generative? Does it feel healthy? How does it make me feel? Do I really want to do this? What's asked of me? So that practice to develop that, to really stay close to their inner truth, to what feels right for them, and the ability then to communicate it in a clear way, sometimes gently, sometimes maybe firmly, yeah, depending on what is required. So learning how to create also healthy boundaries when it feels that everything starts to flow into each other, especially with social media and social technologies. This is very, very important. Yeah, so they need to, and to also understand, therefore, that the information fields that are generated by these technologies are not always real. So how do I know what is the difference? Yeah, between what life is telling me and what I'm hearing on Facebook. So, for example, and this is important because there's some of the teenagers are really affected by, because when they use social media, people can say very nasty things, and they wouldn't dare to say that one-on-one, person to person, when you have to look the person in the eye. But because technology creates also a distance away, an artificial distance. Therefore, sometimes people say and do things they would not do physically. But the impact of it can be as painful and as harmful as if it were to happen physically, and sometimes even more. So it's very important that young people are able to protect themselves from that by having a very healthy, centered, whole sense of self, of their own sense of being, their own sense of meaning, and also knowing how to work with nature's wisdom to restore that inner space and the health of their space. So much information and so many thoughts, and it's confusing. Go and sit with the river. Just let all that activity of the mind just flow into the water and ask the water to cleanse it for you. Put your back against the tree and ask the tree, just ground me. Bring me back to my roots. Show me again what's real, what's really life here. Because when you sit in a forest like that and you hear the birds around you and you listen just to the beautiful flowing water, and you feel the strength of the trees, nature doesn't judge. Nature doesn't have thoughts. Nature doesn't put a like or dislike on your post. And nature sustains you. Nature sustains us.
You're sharing
So
something,
that practice.
you're sharing something most beautiful now. Thank you for that, because it's one thing to see a tree on the internet. It's something very different to have a direct experience, and it relates back to also the not such pleasurable experiences that you might have on social media in a social type environment online. Is that seeing a picture of somebody climbing a tree? It's not you climbing a tree. Seeing somebody swimming the ocean is not you. You don't have that experience of going through the water. It's the real direct experience that makes it real. You watching reality shows and getting absorbed in that type of fantasy, which is not real because it's somebody else's, it's stage number one. And even if it's not, it's somebody else's life. If you follow somebody on Instagram or on Facebook, wherever they go, you're not having a first type of experience, a second-hand experience. So which takes me back to that which you shared about the not so nice experiences you might have on social media and how to determine which ones to engage in and which ones not to, which things to follow and which not to. And you explained so beautifully with the sense of self. If you don't have a strong sense of who you are, and as we go through life, the sense can become stronger, or it can be actually, it can be harmed by such events. And then we have to start all over again. We don't have to. But what's important is that even if somebody says something online that's horrible and rude to you, or they bully you, or they don't want to listen to what you want to say, so they want to give you space to share your experiences and your views, then use your sensory imagination, which we all have been blessed with as well, to determine how would it have felt if that person was standing right in front of you. And then would you have stayed there?
Yeah.
It's like you're asking me to jump into the fire. I will not jump into the fire if the fire is in front of me. My body won't allow me to. My body will go into fright type reactive behavior.
Yeah.
So imagine that. And a lot of people, it's very interesting as well where this is going as far as sensory imagination. Is unfortunately, with virtual reality in that way, you cannot really see what the other person's intentions are and their agendas. They might put up a mask in front of you as well.
Yeah.
So to develop your sense of self is one of the most important parts of life.
Yes.
Especially now that your body can start to guide you, because the body always knows.
Exactly.
But we need to learn that because we've never been exposed to it before and introduced to it before.
That's right. And that means first recognizing the subtle. A lot of what we see also in virtual realities and social media is not subtle. We are bombarded, with very harsh signals, loud. Yeah? But life communicates in very subtle ways. That higher intelligence, higher consciousness, higher wisdom is very subtle. It doesn't come as a big bang. Yeah, it's very refined, very powerful. So, for example, with your body, that means in the beginning it might be, your body telling you, you need rest now. And it may just give a subtle nudge, you need to rest now. And you may go over that boundary and not listen, not honor it. And then you become very tired and you're still ignoring it. And then the body will give louder signals till eventually you maybe even fall asleep. Yeah. When we then trace back and go, hold on, did my body warn me? Yes, it did. Did I listen? No, I ignored it there, ignored it there, ignored it there. Then it became a harsh signal. But it started with a very, very subtle nudge. So when we then learn to trust these subtle course directions that life is giving us, the subtle course directions and guidance that our body is giving us, we develop trust there. Then over time, as we practice that trust in the subtle is now glaringly clear. It's no longer subtle in a sense of that people say, well, what do you mean, No, it's subtle clarity. It's amazing clarity. It's a direct knowing. It's very precise. And we will know then how to navigate by that which knows us.
Now that brings up immediately for me a very simple exercise that one can do, especially on social media. is to firstly take time to go to each person that you're connected with on social media, to go to their Facebook page, and just sit back, take a deep breath, make sure you're in your own body, just be with the picture, and allow your body just to speak. If your body starts getting tensed, it's a warning sign. You don't have to think about it. Just to spend time with it. Go for each one. Just notice. We call it attentive noticing. So all we do is we just notice what's happening in our bodies. We're not judging the person. It's not about the other person. It's about our experience. And gently we go through this process to see what's happening. Then we can go a level deeper. And a level deeper is we now check. We look at our engagements with them, how our bodies feel. Is inner being felt when we engaged in this way on a thread? Or maybe we're simply just following it. And slowly we become aware of where there is potholes. Because if we step into a pothole once, it's okay. If you step into it twice, it's maybe still okay. But the next time we're going to go around it. And that's very powerful to empower ourselves to, with attentive noticing, start to happen, to notice what is going on out there. That's also called collective wisdom that informs us through our bodies of what's happening. So in this moment, I would like to invite you to take a slow deep breath. Just breathe deeply into your body. And we give gratitude to Anneloes for this beautiful experience today. For this beautiful blessing, for her presence, sharing the spirit of the earth with us. And afterwards, I'd like to invite you to also visit her websites in details and connect with her. The body of wisdom that she's sharing with the world is most precious. And she will share with us about her quest. Yeah.
I'm sorry for that.
No, I live in Africa. I know that so well. We always have. No, my daughter is so. My daughter has been so amazing. She also, because here we get a similar thing. We get power cuts unexpectedly.
Yes.
And she went to buy me for my birthday a beautiful big power pack. It's a power bank, so I don't. If the power goes down, I've got a power bank.
Wonderful. A great gift, yes.
She knows the mom needs that.
Yeah, exactly. We need one also.
So I'll stitch it all beautifully together. So I'll just finish what I shared where I lost you, and then I want to really just ask you. I really want them to know about your leadership quest. So I just want to ask about that, and then we can gently say in the podcast. And I just want to also obviously know from you, but I can tell them that we will share your details afterwards in the end of the podcast.
That's nice. Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Good.
Very good.
So thank you. So I was starting to share about what the young ones can do with their social media contacts. So I'll just start that process again, then I can stitch it nicely together.
Yes. Yes.
It's wonderful when we take time to just notice, we call it attentive noticing, of what's really happening in our bodies, of how we feel. Do we feel energized or do we feel depleted when we're with other people online? And one way to do it is to take time one day and go through your friends lists on all types of social media. And just take a moment to bring up their profile, their page, and you sit completely your own body. You're breathing, just to come back to yourself, slow breathing. And remember, it's not about them, it's about your experience. So this is not me trying to judge them, are they good enough for us or not to be with? It's not about that. It's about whether the experience is healthy for ourselves and whether it's serving ourselves in this moment. And then we just sit with their picture and start breathing slowly in and out and being with their picture as if they're sitting in front of us. And then just notice what happens in our body. And we just notice. We're not trying to judge it. And just become aware, is the body feeling more expansive, more like full of vitality, or something is not nice, my body's cringing in. Simple as that. And you can go a little deeper after that, where you start to notice what's happening with you when you just read their posts. What's happening in your body? And then after that, you can drill even a level down. You're not doing this at the same time, obviously. Then you can go a level down where you physically engage with them. What's happening in your body? And your body has its own ways of, its own like a temperature meter to decide whether it's good or not to be with it for this moment. Maybe tomorrow, okay, but not for this moment. Just to notice who is in our field, who do we allow close to ourselves, and where do we put this tension we spoke about earlier? Where do we put it towards? Now, Anneloes, I'm really grateful for your presence here today, but there's something else that I want to explore because a little birdie came to sit on my shoulder, which is very vocal, about a very interesting experience that you and some of your colleagues are currently sharing with the world and with most amazing beings. What is that all about?
You're talking about the leadership quest, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
The birdie says, yeah.
Yeah.
And the body wants to dance suddenly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
From a temperature reading there, it's like, yeah, this is nice and warm. Yeah. Yeah. It's an amazing journey. And it's really, in fact, a lot of the things that we did today, yes, and these little practices, I share that in the leadership quest. So it really is a quest. It's an online quest. Everybody can join from around the world. Last time there were people from 15 different countries that joined. It was amazing. From all walks of life. We do also give scholarship for the youth future leaders because we really want to be able to give them this opportunity. Yeah? And it's supported and endorsed by a wonderful community of revolutionary leaders internationally, like Dr. Jean Houston and Dr. Jude Curran and Professor Alexander Laszlo and Dr. Daniel Wall and many others as well. Yes, and on the Leadership Quest page, which you can find on the Earthwise Center website, which I think you will share later, you have all the details there. So it's a transformational journey for us to also experience these higher consciousness states and learn how to enter that and how to apply that and how to bring that forth, how to come into that state of coherence as well. And what it means to be alive right now, you know, what is this transition time about, and what's the kind of support that we can give for that, so that we can really transitioning through into new ways of being and relating with each other. And that doesn't have to come at such destruction and shock and pain. So it's really also about drawing that, so where you source your leadership from, yeah, so that it comes from a place of inspiration and from beauty. And through that, through the quest, we explore what does it mean to be a steward and a custodian for our collective well-being. So it takes, as we start a journey with leadership, where we take it is really into custodianship and stewardship, knowing that there's nobody that is the leader and there's nobody that is, you know, knows the way or leading the way and the rest of followers. No, we're all on this journey together. And it's about all of us, how are we bringing out togetherness together in a meaningful way, in a way that's generative, in a way that really helps us to explore the best of our abilities and human potentials within an evolutionary context.
Well, I can just tell everybody, my body is a wonderland. And as you sharing this beautiful quest, this journey of yours, interesting things is happening in my body. And it's very interesting. My mind is, it's like the opening, you know. We have also very interesting ways to open our minds. And now suddenly it's just like, there's something big happening there. But my body is joyful. My body is excited about this journey you're sharing about. So I would really like to invite everybody. We are going to share Anneloes' details and all this interesting information about this quest at the end of this podcast. And also, I'd like to invite you to maybe look at this video again and engage in it again. Because sometimes we hear something for the first time and it's sort of, you know, we become a little bit aware of it. But when we just sit back again without, because there was that curiosity in the beginning. But now the second time around, just be with us, like we're sharing here today, and just notice what emerges for you from within you and from outside of you. And because in this beingness part, it's from this beingness part that we can actually really start to understand and experience custodianship on a deeper level. Because we live in a world where leadership was put in front, but the beingness part was left behind.
Yes, that's right.
And just simply being with us by sitting gently backwards, or you can lie on your bed and just listen to us as well. Doesn't matter, whatever is best for you and comfortable for you, but you will be surprised. And it's not because of me and Anneloes, it's because you're part of this now. So whatever we shared about today, you're part of it, whether you're going to actively become a participant in something or contribute or engage with us, does not matter. You're already part of it. It's a field, it's a unified field. And the reason for you being here today, my experience on my planet, is that whenever we are drawn to something, there's a reason for it. And maybe this reason might only be prevalent for you in 10 years, and that's also good. But be with us is our invitation. And from my heart, and I know I will not speak on behalf of Anneloes, she will also share her parting words.
Too. I join my heart. Yes.
We want you to experience the beauty of feeling your sense of self deep inside you. Because, and again, my body's responding, something extraordinary is going to happen. And it's not going to deplete you or drain you. It's going to revitalize you. So thank you very much, Anneloes. I really, from my planet's perspective, we want to revere you and all the beautiful beings that's involved in working together with you in this way. And I'm curious about a last message for the ones who came more recently. From your side.
You mean
a message?
A last message from,
yeah, from you, yeah. Yeah, from you for the ones who came more recently.
Trust in what's been given to you to bring forth. Because each of us have received something from the universe for this time in which we are alive now. And only you can bring that. And you have our full support to bring that forth. It is within your very being that that gift lives. And we trust you with that.
My body and all my cells laughs hearing that.
You are lightening up.
And when my body is responding in this way, I just want to tell everybody, but it's my experience. It might not be your experience, but it's my experience. That when something is being shared on such an extraordinary level, and I don't even want to use the word deep level because it might not be understood correctly or Yeah, it's not a hierarchy of things. It's not a ladder that you have to climb or go down on. But my whole being resonates with what you just shared. So everybody, what she shared about you is true times, quadrillion times. And believe it, it's true. Your truth is your truth. Trust it. So thank you so much, Anneloes. We're really looking
Thank you
forward.
so much. I have really enjoyed this conversation, and thank you for all the joy and light and wonder you're bringing into the world.
Oh,
thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody. Yes, I have no words. Sometimes I can be speechless as well. You might not believe it, but I can. And now it's one of those moments. So in that state of speechlessness, I want to say, all of us, the spirit of the earth loves you. Bye-bye.